Now, I had somebody, a lot of people, and I'm glad for this because I thought we covered it yesterday in an understandable way, but a lot of emails from people who want his Cadillac tax scam explained. And I don't mind going through this again because it is really crucial that you understand this. Gruber said, among many, and we've got audio supporting all this coming up here, and including the new Gruber video, fifth one now, about Ted Kennedy ripping off the federal government to the tune of $400 million a year. Ted Kennedy was in on the scam, and Gruber was proud of it, and was out telling everybody what a great guy Ted Kennedy was for helping come up with a way to scam the federal government on Obamacare. But the Cadillac tax, here's what Gruber said in one of the videos to one of his audiences. He said, once again, that ultimately, the Cadillac tax, that ultimately became the genesis of what is called a Cadillac tax in the health care bill, which I think is one of the most important and bravest parts of the health care law and doesn't get nearly enough credit. What was the Cadillac tax? It was nothing more than a trick. It was designed to trick consumers and policyholders into blaming their insurance companies for tax-induced premium increases. And that's what Gruber here is describing as brave. They raised taxes on these Cadillac plans, the most expensive plans. They taxed the insurance companies 40%. And that was the trick. They made consumers believe that the tax was going to be paid by the insurance companies, who the people hated already. And so, therefore, the people supported it because this was an evil, big insurance industry getting sucked. The old class envy, class warfare scheme. So they trick policyholders, people that have health insurance plans, into blaming the insurance companies for that 40% tax increase. So they turned an innocent victim, the insurance companies. They were sitting there minding their own business, and one day there was a mandate that came from Washington, and that mandate was there's going to be a 40% tax on health insurance plans over and above a certain amount of money, the Cadillac plans. The government mandated that tax increase on the insurance company. The insurance companies then pass the tax cut or the tax increase along in the form of higher prices. It was the regime that ultimately caused everybody's prices to skyrocket. The trick was blaming the insurance companies for it. And in this case, the insurance companies were the innocent victim. They were turned into a villain in order to distract everybody from the government scheme to fund an affordable lie. And that's what Gruber is calling brave. The trick they played to convince you that the insurance companies were screwing you and not the regime. Only a con man would call this brave, and only a fraudulent media would excuse or ignore it. The fifth Gruber video, which has emerged, and again found by an average citizen, not the drive-by media, they still have to be dragged kicking and screaming to this. A video from Vermont shows Jonathan Gruber mocking a Vermont citizen who expressed concern about single-payer health care. It's a 2011 video shot by TrueNorthReports.com. It was released yesterday. And in it, Gruber appears before the Vermont House Health Care. This guy was everywhere selling this. And Pelosi says you never heard of him. And Obama said you know who he is. The guy was everywhere. He was the golden boy. He was the architect. At one point, they loved this guy. He was the guy that enabled this scam to become law. And in this instance, he's at the Vermont House Health Care Committee to present recommendations for a universal, publicly financed health care program. The recommendations were part of a report submitted to the legislature by an economist up there and co-written by Gruber. And as Gruber is sitting there listening, the committee chairman reads a comment from a citizen in Vermont who expresses concern that Gruber's plan might lead to ballooning costs, higher taxes, and bureaucratic outrages. After hearing this note, the chairman of the committee read this letter from an average Vermont citizen expressing concerns about Gruber's plan. After hearing it, Gruber said, "Was this written by my adolescent children by any chance?" And the remark was met with uproarious laughter. So you have a legitimate citizen who had nailed it. He's listening to all this. And wait a minute, isn't this going to cause costs to just skyrocket, taxes to go up? Isn't this going to just cause massive bureaucratic nightmares? And Gruber said, "Mr. Chairman, was this written by my adolescent children by any chance?" Mocking average people. Mocking citizens. That's who Gruber and his elitists are. This video is the fifth in a string of videos to surface this week in which Jonathan Gruber, MIT, publicly mocks citizens or brags about his use of deception in crafting health care policies. Being paid, by the way, $400,000 by the state of Vermont to advise the governor there on how to finance Vermont's single-payer health care law. This is back in 2011, so 3 years ago. He got $400,000 from the state of Vermont alone. That's not inclusive of what the feds were paying him, which is into the millions.